The media made any doctors talking about this. They made a mockery.
It was completely suppressed. Any mention of ivermectin on social media or hydroxychloroquine was automatically taken down. Doctors who
why?
advocated
Taken down by social media companies, by big tech.
Yeah.
We've seen now from the Twitter leaks that the government were involved in telling the big tech companies of what to remove and who to silence.
Yeah, I haven't got the full details on that, but it wouldn't surprise me. There was one narrative that was allowed.
Why do you think? Why do you think ivermectin was suppressed? Why do you think all of these things were happening and only one narrative was allowed?
My personal view?
Yeah.
Ivermectin's cheap.
Okay.
You can't
Profit,
make money
so
out of it.
business again. It's business.
Yeah,
it's not public health care then.
No, I don't think so. To me, the evidence for ivermectin is there.
Yeah.
And perhaps having effects against other viruses as well as SARS coronavirus 2. But there were opportunities given early in the pandemic. Researchers in Japan, for example, were prepared to do large-scale studies on ivermectin. Santoshi Omura and William Campbell won the Nobel Prize for ivermectin in 2015. And the Japanese authorities offered to do this, but Merck didn't really want to follow that up. Merck were the main producers. Ivermectin has basically eradicated some truly horrible diseases, parasitic diseases around the world. And the community health project I'm involved in Uganda, we use ivermectin for parasitic diseases. Wonderful, wonderful drug. But it appears it also has antiviral properties, and they are not being exploited because the pharmaceutical industries were working on their own antivirals, sophisticated antivirals, but partly based on research that was done for antiretroviral drugs in HIV, which has transformed HIV treatment around the world. HIV, remember, was a death sentence. We lost Freddie Mercury, for goodness sake. These days it would be easy to save his life. So many other tragic losses. So that's been great, but they had all these other antivirals that were in the pipeline, and these were hugely expensive. So from a purely industry-based point of view, why would you want a dirt cheap effective antiviral
from a business
when you can have an expensive one?
Well, we saw there was an Australian businessman, an Australian billionaire, who bought enough ivermectin for the whole of Australia.
I've heard that. I haven't got a detail on that.
And it was seized by the Australian government. So then it's not just about. Then it's like they have purposely, governments and politicians have purposely prevented a remedy to this disease in the very early days,
or at least prevented the clinical trials which would have conclusively demonstrated it. We did do a clinical trial in the UK.
How can anyone trust them?
Well, this is the problem. There's a big clinical trial done in the UK in Oxford on ivermectin. We haven't got the results yet.
No, you won't get them.
But and then there's the funding. I mean, my talk yesterday, we were talking about this. The principles of evidence-based medicine. Yep. Best available evidence, expert opinion, patient preferences. Best available evidence, though, it's the drug companies that are very often funding the trials.
So the best available evidence is the evidence that they're giving us.
It means that the trials that are done
the companies
are selected. So if there's a nice dirt cheap treatment of a generic drug, why should they bother doing a clinical trial on that?
They won't. They'll pick a clinical trial on the most expensive one, and then they'll say this works, even if it's just got one little alternative to the cheap.
Correct. And that is the problem.
And that's business.
That's business, and it's not good for my health, and it's not good for your health, and I think it's appalling, and I think it needs to change. I think we need completely independent methods of researching drugs.
Do you see any? Do you see it changing?
No, I don't see it changing. It's a real problem. Government should be researching these drugs completely independently, based purely on scientific medical grounds. And at the moment, that research is simply not being prioritised.
Didn't the Indian government attempt that at the start with one of these vaccines, and then the vaccine company just pulled out of their country and said, "Okay, we're not going to India"?
I'm pretty sure. I think what happened there was that the mRNA producing Moderna, Pfizer, they wanted indemnity, so we can sell you billions of doses, but they want a complete indemnity. As far as I know, the Indian government wouldn't give them an indemnity, so they said, "Oh, we'll take a ball home and play somewhere else."
Are we right? If ivermectin was
ivermectin, yeah.
If ivermectin was if ivermectin was curable for COVID, they would never have got the emergency use given to them, which would then allow them not to be penalised for any of the deaths.
This is absolutely true.
So that's why they suppressed
it's not so much the indemnity. I think the indemnity is a separate thing. Okay. But this is true in the United States.
They can't be held accountable.
The indemnity means they can't be held accountable for adverse reactions.
So that's
why the governments gave them indemnity. But what you're referring to now is the FDA. I don't know about the UK, but the FDA have got a clause in the States, which of course is the biggest market. And that clearly says if there's an alternative treatment available, you can't have emergency use authorization on a new treatment. So if ivermectin had been effective, then they wouldn't have been able to get emergency use authorizations on the vaccines, as I read the FDA guidelines.
Which would have meant that every single person who's been vaccine injured now could have sued the hell out of them.
No. I think the indemnity is a separate thing.
Okay.
What it means is the vaccines wouldn't have got the emergency use authorization, and the rollout would never have started.
Okay.